Welcome to the Happier and Healthier podcast. I'm your host, Maria Marlowe, and this is a place where we don't rely on good luck or good genes for our health and happiness, but rather we create it with our thoughts and our actions each and every single day. Each week, I'll bring you a thought or a guest that will help you live your happiest and healthiest life. Are you ready? This podcast is brought to you by Eat Slim, my 10-week online nutrition and cooking course that's going to help you lose weight sustainably and improve your health. This is the program that I wish I had when I had a really unhealthy diet and I was so confused and overwhelmed by all of the nutrition information out there. All I wanted to do is heal my body, stop being sick so often, and to lose weight. So this program really comes from that place of I wish that I had someone to really hold my hand and guide me to figuring out what I needed for my body. So after working with many practitioners, after going to cooking school, after going to nutrition school, and then after working with people one-on-one for years as their health coach, I realized there are a lot of similarities in terms of what people need help with. And so that is how Eat Slim was birthed. If you're confused about what to eat, if you want to have more energy, to feel lighter, to feel better, to understand your body, then I really encourage you to join us for this program. It's been called life-changing and people have really got a lot out of it, and most of the participants stay on and continue to support the new people who join the program as time goes on because people just feel really connected to it and enjoy helping others get to that place of healthy being effortless and healthy being something that really becomes your lifestyle and is no longer something torturous or something you have to do, but rather something that you want to do. So there's more details on that at mariamarlowe.com/eat-slim. It's 30 minutes a week of cooking and nutrition courses, so you'll really understand your body and know exactly what to eat. There's also a weekly meal plan with a done-for-you grocery shopping list, which is a game changer because it really makes your life so easy. You don't have to think about a thing. Then there is also the option for you to create your own meal plan with our specific recipes and again generate a customized grocery shopping list based on that. So it's like hitting the easy button. There are also group Q&A calls with me so you can get your questions answered, and you'll also get a chance to meet other participants, which is a really nice part about the program because it's going to help you stay motivated and inspired. The community aspect of the program is what really makes it something special. And all of this for just $40 a week, which is a fraction of the cost of what you would pay to work one-on-one with a health coach or a nutritionist. Everyone who joins the class before September 3rd is also going to get a bonus free copy of my book, The Real Food Grocery Guide, which has been called the most practical guide to healthy eating by renowned physician Dr. Dean Ornish. So some of you may know him. He has written a ton of New York Times bestselling books. He was Bill Clinton's doctor. He's a cardiologist. He actually has the original and only one of two programs that are FDA approved to not only prevent but to reverse heart disease. So he's an incredible health researcher and he has called this book the most practical guide to healthy eating. So you guys who register before September 3rd will get a free copy of that. For anyone else who is not ready to join Eat Slim, you can still get the book on Amazon and I believe it's only $12. And now let's jump into my interview with Dr. Amy Shah. I'm here with Dr. Amy Shah, a double board certified medical doctor and wellness expert who's received her medical training from Cornell, Harvard, and Columbia universities. She has a thriving medical practice in Arizona where she sees more than 5,000 patients each year. She's also a medical consultant for a number of brands, and she was named one of the top 100 women in wellness by Monbody Green and a top doctor by Phoenix Magazine as well. So Amy, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. So exciting.
So you focus really on three things: the gut health, hormone health, and intermittent fasting. So those are the topics that I'd really love to jump in with and talk about. But first, I'm curious because you do see so many people in your practice. Do you see any trends in illnesses and what people are coming in to see you for?
So what I'm seeing commonly in my practice is end stage of inflammation, most commonly. The reason why I'm so interested in nutrition, gut health, and hormone health is because there's telltale signs that come way before disease. So, for example, people come to me for food allergies or bloating or allergies in general, and they will have had years of symptoms before that that just aren't picked up. And so, what I'm seeing trend over and over is that before you get diabetes, you're going to see signs of insulin resistance. Before you get full blown GI problems, you often have some smaller issues that just get ignored. And I know myself, I had all these hormonal imbalance issues when I was in training, and nobody could really help me with those because until you have a disease in Western medicine, you don't really have a treatment. And so that's kind of the trend I see. The trend I see is moving more towards helping people figure out these symptoms well before that can actually be managed with diet and exercise before it's too late.
And I love that you said that because I also agree. I think that very often our body will start giving us little signs way before it becomes a full-blown problem. And sometimes we'll see the outward signs, whether it's, skin issues or weight issues, or maybe we just feel tired. But sometimes there's also signals that we won't see, like our blood pressure or A1C. Like we don't really know what's going on in there. So that's why it's really important for people to go to the doctor regularly and get a physical annually, right?
Yes.
Even myself in college, they make you go every year, school, they make you go every year. But after college, and if you think, oh, I'm pretty healthy, like I'm okay, people stop going to the doctor. And it's really important to be going at least that annually to make sure that all your levels and all your numbers are good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think people are sometimes scared of the doctor a little bit.
Yeah, and rightly so. I think that there's a really big backlash towards the medical field these days, and like I said, rightly so. There's been just so many pressures on patients and pressures on doctors. The healthcare system is definitely broken, and there's got to be something new that comes out of it. And so I can understand why patients are frustrated because doctors are definitely frustrated also. It's kind of goes both ways.
Yeah. And I love that there's this whole switch to focusing on prevention now, which is still, I think, a little slow going. Not everyone
Yeah.
is on the prevention bandwagon, but I'm so happy to see that so many more people are embracing this prevention and not waiting until they get a serious diagnosis to shift their diet and lifestyle. So
Exactly.
let's talk a little bit about hormones. And let's just start with hormones and food. So what is the connection and what foods are maybe triggering hormonal issues that we don't even think about?
The hormone imbalance, gut health, and inflammation are kind of interconnected. So you might be feeling bloated, you might be feeling brain fog, and you might be feeling like you can't lose the weight. All of these things can signal hormone imbalance, gut imbalance, inflammation. They're kind of all together. So there's certain foods that I see over and over and over again that kind of shift you into those imbalances. Sugar being number one. I think we can all agree, no matter what diet people believe in, I think everybody kind of converges on the fact that sugar is a big issue, not only for hormonal imbalance, but for impacting the gut microbiome and for inflammation. And so taking sugar in morning, noon, afternoon, night, it's a drug and it's meant to be in very small amounts. And in our society, it's become ubiquitous. Basically, you're waking up with it, you're going to bed with it. So I kind of tell people that think of it like a drug. Think of it as, nature has made things that have sugar in it to signal to you that it's food. So that's why naturally fruit has it. But there's also fiber, and there's also live vitamins, and there's also the skin and the peel. And so you can imagine that you're not supposed to have refined sugar often. In fact, you probably shouldn't be having it at all, I would say, if you're trying to really balance your hormones. So sugar being number one. And then once we get through sugar, you definitely get into the wheat and the dairy. Those three things are probably my top three things. And wheat, meaning most grains in general, are very irritating and can really, really imbalance the hormones. But especially people who are insulin resistant, especially people who have estrogen dominance, especially people who have autoimmune thyroid issues, there's a lot of hormonal imbalances, PCOS, that sugar and grains really affects. And those are really good to kind of take a break from. I never say that you have to go grain free forever, but for some people's hormonal imbalances, you actually get a lot better when you lower your grains or take them out. And then dairy. Dairy is a hard one. For some people, dairy is a big, depending on their hormonal imbalance again, if it's a testosterone excess issue, if it's a progesterone issue, often dairy really helps. Whereas some people can tolerate small amounts of dairy and they're fine with it. So it's so interesting that in my training, when we talked about the foods that really cause inflammation, both for food allergies, for food intolerances, for GI intolerance, it's always the same 8 foods coming up over and over and over and over. So I kind of stick to that 8 food elimination, or at least start with 2 or 3 and then go down the path.
Yeah, I was just going to say all the foods that you're saying could trigger a hormonal imbalance are the same ones that can trigger the gut imbalance and so many other inflammation. So, do you want to just list the 8 foods?
Yeah. So sugar, refined sugar is obviously number 1. And then wheat, dairy, meaning cow's milk. When I say dairy, anything made out of cow's milk, soy, and peanuts, shellfish, or even fish for some people, but most of the time it's shellfish, and nuts, other nuts, tree nuts, and eggs. Those are kind of like the common things. And when I add in sometimes corn in there, like I said, for me, wheat and grains, depending on the imbalance, sometimes I'll take out just wheat, sometimes all grains, depending on what they're dealing with, because just the way we process these things and the things we add into their flours and how we refine them can even be the problem. We're just finding out now how much these additives and these chemicals are really affecting our hormones. So definitely, someone who has estrogen dominance, I always tell them that they have to be very, very cognizant of all the plastics we're getting in the BPA, the BPP. In fact, they found out that even if it says BPA free, the BPA substitutes are worse than the BPA. So it's really, really tough. And all these foods are wrapped in plastic and you heat them up in plastic. And in the summer, you keep your plastics in the car and drink the water out of them. So when it comes to hormone imbalance, we're just learning the chemical side of it, but we do know the food side of it really well.
Yeah. And it can seem a little overwhelming at first because you're like, I thought I only had to worry about the food. Now you're telling me I need to worry about the water bottle and my deodorant and all this other stuff. But with the BPA and the canned foods and really with anything in your home, I always try to advise people do what you can in your home and then you don't have to worry about it so much when you go out. Like when you go out to a restaurant, they're probably going to be serving you something out of a can. Like it's inevitable, right? But at least when you're home, make it a point not to use the cans as much as you can. You can buy most things that you can buy in a can. You can buy frozen or in a glass jar at this point. And there's a lot of ways that you can start mitigating it in your home to kind of mitigate that exposure.
Yeah, I like that. I like that tip.
Yeah. And the glass water bottle. I always have my glass water bottle wherever I go.
Yeah, I love it.
So we talked a little bit about food and hormones, but what are some of the non-food factors that are also affecting our hormones?
Food definitely affects our hormones, but there's, like I said, the chemicals and our environment is really imbalancing our hormones. If you think about a child that's born in the Western world today, how much chemical exposure, how much plastics, how much food that they're eating that has residues on it, how much the groundwater that they're drinking is contaminated. You think about the exposure to chemicals that these children will have over their lifetime, and it's extremely scary to me. I have young kids, and to me, it's really scary that we continue to use dyes and synthetic flavors that we know can be harmful to our children, but yet we don't have enough research. Whereas, for example, Europe is much stricter with their standards, because even if we don't know, it's children that we're dealing with. Finding something out 20 years down the line, we're going to be too late.
Yeah. So chemicals are definitely a big one. And I think, yeah, there's just such an onslaught of chemicals at this point in time. Do you feel like emotions play any role in this at all? Like, have you looked at that connection?
For hormone imbalance? Of course, your mind just posted something this on Insta stories. I said, we talk about not feeding your body junk all the time, yet we're feeding our mind junk all the time by reading the news. News is constantly using scare tactics to evoke anxiety emotions in you and emergency, epinephrine. You really need to detox your mind from all the junk. Just like we detox our body from all the junk, we need to do that with our mind. How many times have you had someone talk to you in a negative way, or they're having a really bad day and they kind of throw their emotions onto you and they want you to catch it so that they can take it like off their chest? But really what I always tell people is you have to build a brick wall. Like, your mind is a brick house. And though there's going to be toxic people in your life that you can edit out, sometimes you just can't. I think that the mind-body connection is probably the most underutilized therapy for balancing hormones, for helping gut health. I mean, we're just finding out now there's a direct connection between your gut and the mind. Things that we always knew, like that gut feeling when you knew something was wrong, that all that stuff is coming back into play again.
Right.
It's really fascinating.
Well, they say that your gut is really like your second brain, right? Like you said, we have gut feelings, like it's actually a thing, and our intuition and all of these things are connected. So maybe we could talk a little bit about the gut brain axis and like what is that connection and how do they affect each other?
The gut is directly connected to the brain. The gut-brain axis was thought to be just this loose connection. Like, now we realize from the brain, the vagus nerve goes all the way down to your gut. We know now that our lymphatic system that we thought is just like a drainage system for our body actually is the direct connection between our brain and our gut. So the lymph nodes, the lymph drainage, lymph massage, yoga, it all kind of makes sense now, right? Because when you're doing these twisting movements, you're doing these things that drain out your lymph nodes, you're improving your gut and your brain health. Now, like that all gets connected together. That's really the gut-brain axis. The gut-brain axis means that you have neurons and you have lymphatic system, which they're just figuring out now that this lymphatic system is where all of this is connected. And before they couldn't really find a direct connection except for the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is a nerve that gives you that feeling of rest and digest. So for example, the vagus nerve tells your body, okay, Maria is now relaxed. You can go ahead and digest. You can go ahead and make hormones. You can go ahead and repair. It's not emergency mode anymore. But if Maria never goes into triggers that vagus response, there's never going to be that repair and that restoration. And there's always going to be, the gut is always going to be kind of inactive because you're in a stress mode.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. I was actually just running around from meeting to meeting today, and then I was like kind of shoveling in lunch, which I tell people not to do. I tell people to sit down, eat a calmly. And I literally feel like everything like seized up in my gut, because I think I was just so stressed and running around and not giving myself a chance to relax. It really makes such a big difference.
Your gut will not work. And I tell that to people with hormone imbalance too. You're not going to make your hormones when you're in stress response mode. In fact, when you're in a very stressful mode, that your body is creating more adrenaline and more cortisol using the precursors for your other hormones. So if you're trying to like reset your progesterone and reset your estrogen and thyroid, you cannot be always in a stressed mode. Otherwise, those precursors are just going to get taken up.
Yeah, it makes sense. It totally makes sense. So do you have any favorite practices for reducing stress?
Yeah, my favorite practices for reducing stress, obviously I mentioned to you yoga, and The reason why I like it is that it's a couple of things in one. It stimulates that lymphatic system that we know now is affecting the gut in some way. We still don't know exactly what the connection is, but we know they're connected. It's stimulating that breath in you that we know is pretty much a puppet string to your mind. When you slow down your breath, you're able to slow down your mind and you're able to trigger that vagal response. I like that. It kind of, you can do all these things without yoga, obviously, but I like how it's kind of a multitasking thing. But nature is a great way to also, your brain is wired to hear nature noise and to see nature, things in nature. And it's very primitive. It really does relax you. I mean, I don't think any person can go out in nature and not feel at least 10% relaxed, even if you're in a stressful state in your mind. So I think nature, yoga or yoga type breathing, meditation, things. And I tell people if they can't find the thing that does it for them, think back at your childhood. Think about the pleasurable activities that you did as a child. It may be singing, it may be dancing, it might be something you totally forgot about now that you're older and you have all these responsibilities, but it used to give you joy, and those feel good chemicals really counteract the stress hormones. So cuddling with your animal, playing with children, being in a playground, dancing, singing, all those things that seem like a waste of time to us, in our stress state.
Right. And it's so fascinating, right? Because you think like, oh, we're so advanced with our medical system and like we know everything, we understand the body, but it's like, no, we actually don't know anything.
Yeah.
We really don't understand anything. And all of these sort of primitive practices or ancient practices like the yoga and the meditation, the breathing, like things that people knew thousands of years ago as a way to be well, like now they're coming back into vogue, and we're starting to have the science to actually prove why they're so great. But, I don't even think we need the science in a respect. Like if you do it and you feel better, that is enough of proof in my book anyway.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So let's switch gears a little bit from hormones. And I want to talk about intermittent fasting, which is something that we hear a lot about now. I wrote an article on it on my blog, mariamarlowe.com/blog. And the research behind it is fascinating, and just doing it myself, I found it very effective. So I want to know, I know it's something that you use in your practice a lot. So let's talk a little bit about intermittent fasting, what it is and why you think it's so beneficial.
Intermittent fasting is something that I've become really passionate about. I think it's because I feel that it's underutilized. And I feel that it's underutilized because there's no money to be made. And it makes me mad that if this was a drug or a therapy that people could make money off of, it would be so much wider used. At least that's my feeling behind it. Of course, if there's something you can be doing for your health that has the research behind it, like intermittent fasting does, I don't see a reason why we're not incorporating it in more people's lives. And I'm glad you said that it kind of worked for you, because a little bit of pushback that I get sometimes is from women. Actually, as you know, it's not as easy as it is for men to just jump into fasting. So I'm actually curious about your experience with fasting, because I've definitely had to modify a lot as a woman and as a busy woman and as a exercise addicted woman. So I think there's a few things at play for me. So I was curious about your experience too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think to start, I already have a pretty healthy diet, and I feel like my blood sugar is quite balanced because I'm eating whole foods, lots of greens, lots of veggies, healthy protein, healthy fat. So I think in one way that has made it easier for me, just because like everything's kind of even keeled. So what I like to do is I like to finish dinner on the earlier side, like 7-ish. And then I'll do it for like 12 to 14 hours typically. I don't do like 18 hours, but I just find that if I have an early dinner, I go to sleep, that's like 8 hours. And then I get up in the morning, and then I'll usually work out. And I find I just drink like 3 glasses of water in the morning before I work out, and I'll do like a 30-minute workout. And then I'm fine. And then before you know it, that 12 or 14 hours is up, and then I'll have, a healthy breakfast. And I feel great doing it personally. And I also just find when I do it, so, growing up, I used to eat late at night, like in college and stuff. I used to eat late at night, right before I'd go to bed. I'd be up to like 2 o'clock
Yeah.
in the morning and then eat this huge thing, eat
Yeah.
pizza, eat this. And I was fine. And then it's like, every year you get over like 21,
Yeah. Yeah.
that ability decreases. And I find, like even if I eat dinner late, like let's say even 2 hours before I go to bed, sometimes an hour before I go to bed, you wake up kind of like with a brick in your stomach and you don't
Yeah.
feel as good. You're tired, you're more lethargic, all these things. So I find that when I finish the dinner early and I leave myself at least 2, if not 4 hours before I go to bed, then I wake up in the morning like just feeling so vibrant and refreshed and my stomach looks great, So I've enjoyed it. Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about is time restricted eating or time restricted feeding. And I think that's exactly why it's working so well for you. I actually do something very similar. I call it kind of a crescendo type fasting, because what I've noticed is a lot of people jump into 16 to 18 plus hours and they end up really imbalancing their hormones. And so I love what you were saying about the 12-hour to 14-hour. I tell people to start with even that 2 to 3 days a week and then work up to maybe a 14 to 16-hour 2 days a week. And the reason why I say 16 hours is that there's this magical thing that happens around the 16-hour mark, which is called autophagy, where there's actually, it's a kind of like the garbage cleanup, the big garbage cleanup of the cells happens. And we think that that kind of happens more towards the 16-hour mark. And that's why we call it intermittent fasting versus time restricted feeding. At around the 16-hour mark, you basically get this cellular mechanism called autophagy, where it's cleanup of all the dead organelles and dead parts of your cells get cleaned up. And the reason they think that's important is when you look at cells that are older and you look at cells that are younger, cells that are older just have a lot more junk in them because of their age. And when you activate autophagy, you actually can make the cell look younger. So that has huge implications, especially in animal studies. They're finding out, wow, these whole organs are looking younger. Then what does that mean? Younger body, really turning back the hands of time. That is maybe the fountain of youth that we've always been talking about. Now, of course, we don't believe in a single fountain of youth kind of idea, but it's really fascinating that you can make cells look younger than they are just by activating this internal mechanism that happens when you fast.
Yeah, that's actually pretty fascinating. I haven't read that or seen that about the 16-hour mark. So that's pretty fascinating. But yeah, I think people ease into it, starting with the 12 hours and working up to the 14 hours and to the 16 hours makes it much more manageable. And you realize like you're not even hungry. And a lot of people skip breakfast anyway, right? Like, so it's actually, I think, harder in your head to comprehend it just because it sounds like, oh my God, how am I not going to eat for 16 hours? But in practice, it's actually not that hard.
Yeah, I think the other thing that you said was really important. I tell people this as well, is that ending the eating earlier in the evening works much better with circadian rhythms than the skipping breakfast. All the stuff on the weightlifting and the mass media is about skipping breakfast and just kind of having lunch. And you can do it that way. Of course, there's some people's lives who it just makes more sense. But what I found with a lot of people, especially if they have some insulin resistance or hormone imbalance, the earlier dinner that you spoke about and kind of either skipping dinner or having a very light or kind of more low sugar, high fat type dinner or snack is going to be much more beneficial than a high carbohydrate late meal. So I tell people that as well. Like if you're trying to pick between a late dinner or an early dinner, I'd say early dinner and then eat your breakfast at the regular time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. Yeah. So I've read in some places that as long as you're doing the X amount of hours, it's good. But what you're saying is it's probably more beneficial to actually, do the early dinner and then have the breakfast in the morning.
Exactly. So it's like kind of the opposite of what's really popularized. When I look on the internet, most people are talking about, skipping breakfast and doing lunch, which, it does work the same way. However, you'll see if you're looking for weight loss or insulin sensitivity benefits, I think the other way often works better, especially for women with these hormone issues.
Right. And is there anyone that you think intermittent fasting isn't great for?
Yeah, there's a lot of people it's not great for, actually. It's not great. It's not good or recommended in pregnant women. It's not recommended in breastfeeding women. It's not recommended in underweight people, people with eating disorders. As you can imagine, this just triggers a whole cascade of issues for these people. And, with women on the lower end of the BMI spectrum, probably you, probably me, we tend to have more problems with hunger-based signals if we try to fast too much. It's our body's own mechanism to try to protect the fetus, the unborn fetus. And so you'll notice a lot of problems with sleep or hormone imbalance and hunger signals if you try to fast too aggressively when you're on the smaller side, especially if you're the type of person who's just trying to lose that last pounds or fat or whatever. Whereas I've seen that people that have more weight to lose, 100 pounds plus, tend to do really well with extended fasts and with keto plus fasting, for example, whereas a lot of people do not do that. People with severe hypothalamic thyroid dysfunction. So I'm talking about thyroid disease. I'm talking about any kind of pituitary hypothalamic hormone issue, what's just requiring you medication or having a big impact on your life. Like adrenal issues can be as mild as you feel tired to people having to take medication. So you really want to tread lightly when you're in the area of pituitary, hypothalamic, and thyroid issues, because we think that that's where the fasting kind of puts a stressor on. And if you're already stressed out in those areas, very stressed out, actively having to fix that, I don't suggest that you try at least aggressive fasting when you're dealing with that.
That brings up a great point, is that you still also have to listen to your body. So no matter what is trending and what's the health thing du jour, like listen to your body. If you're starving or, you feel faint or whatever, then, listen to that and also work with like a practitioner, work with someone who knows how to guide you through doing it correctly.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest problem is that, we read all these things and we say, oh, I want to do a 24-hour fast, or I want to do 18 hours, say. And then you're in hour 12 and you're just dying of hunger, or you can't perform the things that you were supposed to do. In my book, when I'm working with people, I tell people that's a time that if you want to eat, I usually say eat some fats, eat something satiating that can still keep you in the fasting state, actually, but at least you will have some kind of calories.
Yeah. You reminded me about probably 7 years ago, I had read a book all about water fasting and how water fasting also allows this autophagy process to happen and is really helpful for people with different conditions and stuff. So I was like, oh, perfect. I'm going to go on a water fast. And, there are centers, a couple of them, that you can go and have a medical doctor guide you through this. But I was like, no, whatever. I'll just do it myself. How hard can it be? I was like, okay, I'm going to do it for a week. I did it for 3 days and I literally had zero energy. I was losing like 2 pounds a day to the point it was awful. So I had to get off of it. So can you talk a little bit about water fasting, and what your thoughts are on that?
And by water fasting, you mean just drinking water?
Just drinking water. Yes. Yep.
So water fast is the most common type of fast. That's the type of intermittent fasting that I actually recommend. So the water fasting is the most extreme. A lot of people these days do a modified fast where they have some kind of bulletproof coffee, some kind of fats. They'll have even bone broth or some kind of protein, and they still consider themselves fasting. But a true fast is really a water fast. That true water fast, though, really do a number on the body, because you induce not only will your hunger signals start to get louder and louder and louder, they'll start to break down your muscle, and they'll start to break down the organs, things in your body that you actually need just to keep your body alive. And so I'm not saying that you should never do an extended water fast, but I do think that there's definitely dangers and it has to be done in a supervised way. Your body is designed, just like you can't hold your breath, your body will not let you voluntarily hold your breath till you pass out for people who have good functioning body. The same way, your body is going to do everything it can to send you signals to eat. And if you don't eat, it's going to start breaking down things that are actually important for you.
Right. Yeah. I remember even after those 3 days, I felt like my muscles just like went like
Yeah.
pop. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, yes, you want to do it supervised on like the way that
Yeah.
I did it. Although I do have a friend, actually, Danielle from Sakara talks about her story a lot.
Yeah.
And this is how she started Sakara, is because she went to one of these centers and she also did a water fast under supervision, but she ended up in the hospital in the emergency room.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I think probably you need to have some weight to lose in order to really do this.
Yeah.
And then if you have like a specific health condition that could benefit from it, then that's probably, then you would be a better candidate for a water fast. But for everyone else, if you're a relatively healthy person, then probably more of the intermittent fasting is the way to go.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So let's switch gears a little bit and talk more about the gut. I know you mentioned that the gut and the hormones are very closely related. And actually, I wanted to ask you, because I saw that you're also an Ayurvedic practitioner. And one thing that I love about Ayurveda is that they don't see the different systems in the body. It's like really just one body, right? There's one system and everything's interconnected. So what's going on with gut health? Like, what are some common things or issues you see? And what are we doing that's damaging our gut health? Maybe besides, I guess we talked about it with the hormones, but is there anything else that we're doing that we're not realizing is harming our gut health?
Yeah, gut health obviously has become a huge, huge topic because of the microbiome. Just when I was in med school still, we really didn't talk about the microbiome much because we knew that there was gut bacteria. We thought, they were helpful, and we knew that there was, germs are good, that kind of stuff. But we really did not know the powerful things that the microbiome is capable of doing. And when I say microbiome, I'm basically saying your body cells plus the bacterial cells plus the fungal, viral, all the different things in your body make up the microbiome. In fact, there's more of them than there is of us. There's 40 trillion bacteria, way more than our own cells in our body. So if you think about it, we are more bacteria than we are human. And so they not only do they help us make hormones, they help us process food, make vitamins, they will help us have diseases or not. They will determine, they just found in it something that just came out, something as small as people who got food poisoning. It depended on the gut bacteria that they had, whether or not they would come down with this food virus or foodborne bacteria, sorry. And so they kind of act as protectors. So we're finding out more and more things that the microbiome does for us. Now, the problem is, this is after we've done so many things to kill the microbiome. We know now that the antibiotics that we used to give people for almost everything, including acne and just prophylaxis, is actually killing all these good bacteria that are maybe protecting us from getting viruses and bacteria later on. They're helping us produce hormones and helping us produce vitamins. And so we have to really be careful. Obviously, antibiotics is the most obvious offender, but pharmaceuticals in general and coming into our food supply are very, very bad for the microbiome. Artificial sweeteners, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, things that kill the microbiome, we're just finding out now, the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. And one interesting thing about, you mentioned the antibiotics, which of course makes sense that they kill off the good bacteria too. But a lot of people don't realize they're being exposed to antibiotics in the meat and the animal products that they're eating, because conventional animal products are typically treated prophylactically with antibiotics. And so, the CDC has talked about this is really a growing threat, is antibiotic resistance down the line, because we are just exposed to antibiotics in just so many ways.
The very fascinating thing is that they could trace the resistant bacteria from the gut of the cow to the person that ate that meat cooked, which makes that, like, I was just so floored. Like, you actually, it doesn't even get killed. I mean, they were able to find it in all of those places. So you think, oh, I'm going to have this burger, it's cooked. Like, how could there be any antibiotics in it? But they're actually can travel through somehow. And it's very, very scary.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of repairing the gut health, besides for probiotics, I feel like everyone is on that train. Is there anything else that you think we can do to start repairing our gut if we're dealing with gut issues?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that really help the gut is vegetables. Vegetable fiber, plant fiber is hands down the thing that is going to feed that good bacteria. So it's like a prebiotic food for that gut bacteria. It binds the fiber of like cruciferous vegetables, it binds the excess hormones and the things that we are trying to get rid of. And it helps you flush that out through your gut. So definitely, I think plant fiber would be my top thing to include in your diet that really, and when people say they're healthy, you look at how many vegetables they're eating and they're not getting anywhere close to 8 servings a day. So that's an area that I really harp on if they want to really improve their gut bacteria.
Yes, you sound like me. So I'm always telling people to eat your
Yeah,
vegetables. And yeah,
yeah,
it's true. I think the numbers, according to the CDC, is that 9 out of 10 Americans are not getting enough vegetables. And I believe they only suggest 5 servings, which is actually less than the 8 that
yeah,
many
yeah, yeah. We would say,
that
yeah,
we would say.
exactly.
Yeah. So that number is probably, even worse. But yeah, I think adding more vegetables into the diet is probably one of the single most powerful things that we can do, and relatively easy in the sense that it doesn't, it's not like you need to go buy an expensive supplement or, you have to,
Yeah,
it's just vegetables. And they're some of the cheapest foods really in the grocery
yeah,
store. So,
yeah.
yeah, I definitely agree that making sure that we're getting those greens and the vegetables, the cruciferous vegetables every day is super important.
Yeah.
What about adaptogens?
Yeah, I'm actually a fan of a few. And it's not surprising that ashwagandha, since I like Ayurveda, ashwagandha, rhodiola are two of my favorites because they are stress adaptogens. And adaptogens in general, really do mean that they balance the hormones naturally. It's not like we know how dangerous it is to add or subtract estrogen or progesterone. And so it's really much nicer to use adaptogens, which are natural plant foods that will balance your hormones for you. So if you have a little too much, it'll balance it out. If you have a little too little, it'll add some. And I love it for kind of naturally balancing the hormones, the gut, and your mind. The problem with adaptogens is that because it became so trendy, they're like added in very tiny amounts in many areas. But really, to be useful and functional, you have to have it in a certain dosage.
Yeah. And so what's great about adaptogens is that whether your hormones are too low or too high, the adaptogen just brings it into balance. Unlike
Yeah,
pharmaceuticals, right, which usually will either bring it
yeah,
either down or up.
yeah,
So yeah, Mother Nature is always I feel
yeah,
like one step ahead of us.
exactly.
But so then in terms of like dosage, yes, I've seen ashwagandha in chocolate bars, in,
Yeah,
all sorts of things. And I'm sure it's like one little tiny
yeah.
granule. So then do you recommend having them as teas or putting them in smoothies or just taking a pill? Like what's your preferred
Yeah.
way?
I think it's more of a medicinal supplement. So I don't use these adaptogens all the time. I believe in the power of whole foods. But for example, if you really are trying to rebalance your hormones or your gut and you want to use ashwagandha, I would say have a set amount of ashwagandha every single day, whether it's in a powder form or a pill form or a tea form. But I prefer to just get it over with and have it in a pill form because I actually have a supplement that I made for myself and some people that I work with that has ashwagandha in an exact amount and also rhodiola because I found I had so much trouble finding it for myself when I was looking for it in a good quality place. And this was years ago that I kind of created it. And actually, I'm in the works of revamping that so that it kind of now that I know how to tweak it, like, so we're coming out, it's called Balance and Restore, but so we're going to do like a new and improved Balance and Restore, which basically it's the same thing. It's adaptogen supplement with the vitamin D and vitamin B. But yeah, I'm the kind of person who like wants to get everything over with because I need to get out the door in the morning. If you enjoy having it in your smoothie, amazing. If you enjoy having it in another way, I don't say that there's just one way to do things, but I just kind of have it and be done.
Right. Yeah, I agree. That's definitely an easy strategy.
Yeah.
So I know you have a mastermind for practitioners coming up, which is pretty awesome because you're helping other health and wellness practitioners. So can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when I started getting into the health and wellness space, 2012-ish, I started to think, okay, I have so many more things that I want to do for my patients and what for people, but I don't know how to do it because I'm really in the confines of Western medicine here in practice. So I started to write and started to teach. And I made so many mistakes and I didn't know how to do it. And I didn't know how to do social media and I didn't know how to do the website and nobody was there to kind of tell me what to do. And there's very few people helping out each other, especially in the health and wellness space. And so in the recent couple of years, I've been helping a lot of other people because I don't want people to be in the same position I was, which is basically like, I have something to share. I have a message. I think I can help people in a better way. However, I don't know these logistics and I don't know how to get myself out there. And I don't know how this thing works with, consults. And I don't know how to, do this legally and all those things, all those fears and put myself out there like, oh, I don't want my picture taken, like the whole thing, right? There's the information part of it that's scary, but the other part of it that's scary is really just putting yourself out there in a different way than you're used to. So I think that through my masterminds that I've been doing, I've learned a few key things that could help people. And so I'm coming out with a program for that.
Super cool. So we've talked about a lot of things today, and I know there's so many different ways we can live healthier, but if there's just one tip or piece of advice you could leave our listeners with to live a happier and healthier life, what would that be?
That's a hard one, but I'll have to go with the mind. I'll have to go with the mind-body connection because I think that was a missing piece for me. And I think it's a missing piece for so many people. And it's easier said than done. But for example, you will run through the whole day without once thinking of your feet touching the ground or your legs touching the chair or your eyes opening and closing. Like, the body awareness and the mind and the body connection is very strong. And you need to work on that every day. That's literally the missing key to your health.
I love that. Yeah. And another thing that's usually overlooked is the mind. It's so easy to just focus on the food or the exercise and then forget that our thoughts and what we're putting in our head is just as important.
Exactly.
So you guys can find Amy at amymdwellness.com. She's also on social media doing Instagram stories. She actually did an Instagram live of our podcast. Is there anywhere else that people should be looking for you?
I try to be on Dr. Amy Shah, the Instagram, as much as possible because I'm in my clinic and I'm working with patients and I try to make myself available for questions and feedback over there. So you can always find me there. And also you can always email me or message me on my website.
Thanks for tuning in this week. If you enjoyed and got value from this episode, I'd be so grateful if you can take just 1 minute to leave an honest review on iTunes, as that will help us reach more people and get incredible guests on the show. To say thank you, email a screenshot of your review to info@mariamarlowe.com and we'll send you a free 3-day healthy eating sugar detox meal plan. After each and every episode, I encourage you to come say hi on Instagram at Maria Marlowe, that's MariaMarlowe, or in the private Happier and Healthier podcast group on Facebook. In both of these places, we can continue the conversation about today's episode, so come and share what you think. If you want more, you can also head to mariamarlowe.com where you'll find tons of healthy recipes, meal plans, and resources to help you live your healthiest and happiest life. Lastly, if there's someone you know who'd enjoy this podcast, make their day, and mine, and send it to them now. Until next time, don't forget, Health and happiness are a choice. Our thoughts become our reality, so make sure you're thinking up a masterpiece.